The monthly report contains the core information you need to run your company. You will use this report more than any other piece of information in the game. This report has 3 parts. The top part is the header containing links to your other reports. The middle contains a breakdown of your revenues and expenses for the month. And the bottom part is a table containing your sales, production, reserves, and missed sales of your vehicle models. This column contains your revenues. You can find your expenses in these 2 columns. This row contains your total revenue, your total expenses, and your cash flow. Let's look at the revenue column. Vehicle sales are the revenues you generate from selling vehicles to dealerships through your branch distribution system. Civilian contracts are the revenues you made from civilian vehicle and component contracts. This value includes outsourced units you produced for other companies. Military contract is the same as civilian contracts, except this is specifically for revenues made from militaries. Racing income is the revenue you made from operating racing teams. The more you win, the more money you'll receive. Licensed chassis, engine, gearbox, and vehicle designs royalties appear in the chassis, engine, gears, and design revenues respectively. Sold assets contains all revenues generated from the selling of assets such as factories. OEM parts revenue is revenues from vehicle parts sales to the vehicle repair market. These revenues come from vehicles older than 3 years, but younger than 7 years. The game generates the value from the number of vehicles you sold, the material costs of the vehicles, and how low the vehicle dependability rating is. The merchandise value is the revenues you generate from licensing your trademarks to other companies for consumer goods such as t-shirts, hats, etc. The higher your image ratings, especially your racing image, the more revenues you'll generate here. Bank interest is the amount of money your cash funds generated sitting in a bank. The game bases the interest rate on the global interest rate, and you can find more details in the banking window. Sold stock is the value of stocks you sold. Dividend revenues are the revenues you receive from dividend payments of stocks you own. Let's look at the expenditure column. This value is the total materials costs. This is the material costs of vehicles and components you produced in your factories. Beside that is total factory costs. This expense is the total material costs plus the cost to operate the factory, labor, and the cost of any outsourced units. Below the total factory costs is a breakdown of the costs that make up the factory portion of the total factory costs. The first of these is factory cost. This value is the cost of the physical factory and its production lines. Next is factory labor. This is the cost of the employees working at the factories. Finally, there are outsourced units. This is the cost to purchase units from other companies to use in your production. Total racing is the amount you spent on race teams last month. Furlough costs are the wages you pay to furloughed workers. The number of furloughed employees will decrease every month as you lay off employees. Anytime you need to hire employees, they come from the furloughed pool first. You can find your research and development costs here. The total R&D cost is the cost of your entire research efforts. The data below is a breakdown of the total costs. R&D cost is the design cost for your models under development. Engineer labor is the labor costs of engineers working in R&D and racing. Research team cost is the research development budget you're spending to increase design skills. Total distribution costs are the cost related to your branch and dealership networks. You can find the total amount you spend on your branch system under total distribution cost. Everything below it is a breakdown of this value. Branch costs are the cost of your physical branches around the world. The distribution labor value is the cost of your branch labor. Finally, total transportation costs contain all the costs to ship vehicles from factories to branches. The next block is administration costs. This contains the white-collar costs of running your company. The total admin costs are the total administrative costs for your company. Below is a breakdown of this amount. The admin operations costs are the cost of your office's services and supplies needed to run your company. The game generates these expenses based on the number of factories and branches you have open. The admin labor is the labor costs for all your office employees. Total marketing is your entire expenses for marketing. Below this value is a breakdown of this number. Marketing costs is the budget for your marketing efforts, and marketing labor is the amount you paid marketing employees. Purchased assets contains expenses for buying stocks, acquiring companies, etc. Lobbying costs is your lobbying budget. Warranties contain the expenses from parts failures on vehicles 3 years old or newer. The game generates this value from the number of vehicles you sold, the dependability rating of the vehicle, and the unit costs of the vehicles. After 3 years, failed parts become OEM part revenues instead of being covered by warranties. Construction. This is the factory and branch construction costs for the month. Loan repayments contains the payments you made to any outstanding loans. Credit payments are for any payments made to lines of credit. And bond payments are any bond payments you made. Unfunded pensions are expenses you pay to cover shortfalls in your pension system. If you underfund your pension, you must pay any shortfalls when your employees retire. Storage costs are the cost to store vehicle excess inventories at your factories. Dividend payout is the amount of money you're paying out in dividends each month. One-time expenses cover expenses made from game events and other one-off actions. Total taxes is the amount of money you paid in taxes for the quarter. If you overpay your taxes for the fiscal year, you will get a refund for the amount overpaid. The table at the bottom contains your active vehicle models, their sales, production, inventory, and missed sales data. Each column is sortable by clicking the header. You can also search the table by clicking the white text box and typing in the name of your model. You can also click on any underlined text, which are links to other reports. If you ever need to go to the previous page, click the back button. You can find additional table pages at the bottom of the table. Finally, some reports save the previous month's data. If this is the case, you can find the previous report link in the bottom left.